Imagine trying to fit um, a high-tech data processing center, an electric vehicle repair shop, a medical clinic, and like a fully functioning farm into a space roughly the size of your kitchen.
Right, which sounds completely impossible.
Yeah. On the surface, that sounds like a glitch in some sci-fi simulation. But, down in rural Malaysia, it's actually a real business model.
It really defies almost every traditional metric we use for agriculture. I mean, we're so conditioned to evaluate farming by, how many acres are conquered or the sheer volume of land being manipulated.
Yeah, massive sprawling fields.
Exactly. But this model takes that wide open landscape and just compresses it into an intensely concentrated, localized ecosystem. It's a complete inversion of how we think about producing food.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we've got a really interesting stack of sources centered around a corporate About Us page from a Malaysian agricultural technology company. They're called Ecoladang Micro Farms.
And they are doing some genuinely wild stuff.
They really are. So our mission for today's discussion is to figure out how this one single company is claiming to solve rural economic decline, reverse environmental degradation, and protect AI data privacy all at the exact same time.
It's a massive premise.
It is. And the sources really emphasize that they aren't about exhausting acreage. They're building intensive, intelligent, and deeply sustainable ecosystems.
Right, and to really understand what they're attempting, I think we first have to recognize the philosophical foundation they're building on here. Because for centuries, there's been this assumed sharp divide between the natural world and technological advancement.
Like technology paves over nature, and nature resists technology.
Precisely. We view them as opposing forces. But Ecoladang's entire operating premise is that this divide is just a false dichotomy. They're arguing that artificial intelligence in agriculture can, and honestly must, work symbiotically to heal the environment.
And secure food supplies at the same time. But before we dig into the actual biology of how they do this, which, spoiler alert, involves some incredibly intricate closed-loop systems, we kind of have to look at the underlying motivation, the why.
Yeah, you have to understand the problem they're trying to solve first.
Exactly. Reading through these sources, it becomes super clear that their primary target isn't just crop yield. They're actually taking aim at a severe demographic crisis. They call it human capital flight.
Right, human capital flight or the brain drain. And, I mean, that's a global phenomenon, but it is hollowing out rural communities at an alarming rate right now.
Yeah, especially as economies modernize.
Exactly. Rural areas in Malaysia and really worldwide are watching their brightest, most capable young people pack up and leave for urban centers. They're looking for better wages and modern careers.
Which makes total sense for the individual, but it leaves the rural economies to just stagnate. It creates this terrible feedback loop of decline.
And Ecoladang explicitly states that their deepest mission is to sever that loop. They want to reverse the trend entirely.
Right, and they do that by bringing high-value vocational green economy careers back to the countryside. Like, I kept thinking of this as a Trojan horse.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Because from the outside, it looks like a farm, but inside, it's actually an economic revitalization engine. It operates less like a traditional farm and much more like a computer's motherboard.
With different modules plugged in.
Exactly. They grow food, sure, but every single Ecoladang site also acts as a vocational training center. They offer certified apprenticeships in electric vehicle mechanics, renewable energy installation, data center operations.
Right alongside advanced controlled environment agriculture.
Yeah, it's wild.
But that changes the entire socioeconomic dynamic of a rural town. I mean, they aren't just farming food, they're cultivating financial independence. By coupling agriculture with future-proof tech skills, they're completely redefining what a rural economy can actually be.
So a young person in a rural Malaysian community suddenly doesn't have to migrate to Kuala Lumpur to work in a server farm.
Or to learn how to maintain an EV fleet, exactly. The farm down the street basically functions as the local tech hub.
But the infrastructure goes even deeper than vocational training, which is crazy to me. The sources mentioned they're funding tangible neighborhood assets through their community development fund and something they call Colvester partnerships.
Ah, yeah, the Colvester model.
I actually have to admit some confusion on that term. What exactly is a Colvester? Is that like a local government entity or a corporate investor or what?
It's basically a hybrid model. Colvester is their term for collaborative investors. So instead of some distant corporate entity swooping in and owning the land and taking all the profits, a Colvester partnership pools resources from corporate backers and the local community itself.
Oh, so the community actually has equity in it.
Exactly. It ensures the people living right next to the farm have a vested financial stake in its success. And that profit sharing is what funds the community infrastructure you mentioned.
And that infrastructure is substantial. We're talking about building on-site medical clinics, safe communal learning spaces, and providing high-speed satellite internet for the surrounding neighborhoods.
Because they recognize a really fundamental reality. You cannot just drop a high-tech farm into a declining rural area and expect it to magically thrive if the local population lacks basic health care.
Or if they can't even get online.
Right. The farm really has to serve as an anchor for holistic community welfare.
Okay, so they're essentially building a bustling town square disguised as an agricultural site. But the immediate tension here is that town squares, industrial training hubs, medical clinics, they all generate massive amounts of waste.
Oh, absolutely.
While farms generally require, pristine environments to yield healthy crops. So how are they resolving that friction between high human activity and environmental preservation?
Well, they resolve it through what they call their zero-waste circular loop. In the Ecoladang ecosystem, the concept of waste just does not exist. It's entirely eliminated from the vocabulary.
Wait, like literally no waste?
Literally none. Only resources waiting to be reborn. Every single byproduct from one process becomes the critical fuel for the next. They've engineered this biological machine with three distinct overlapping systems: the energy loop, the soil loop, and the food loop.
Okay, we definitely need to look closely at the mechanics of those loops. Let's start with the energy loop. The sources state they take agricultural residues from the surrounding area, specifically discarded palm fronds and empty fruit bunches.
Which is brilliant because the palm oil industry is massive in Malaysia. So this biomass is just incredibly abundant.
Right, it's just sitting there. So they take that discarded plant matter and use it to generate clean power, which allows the micro farms to operate completely off the traditional power grid.
And bypassing the grid is crucial for rural resilience. But the process of how they generate that energy is what feeds the second system, the soil loop.
But wait, if you're taking massive piles of palm fronds and burning them to create energy, aren't you just releasing a tremendous amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere? And isn't the byproduct just like useless ash?
If they were simply setting it on fire in an open field, yeah, absolutely. But they don't do that. They use a process called pyrolysis.
Pyrolysis.
Yeah. So instead of burning the biomass in the open air, they bake it in a specialized chamber with almost zero oxygen.
Oh, so because there's no oxygen, it can't actually catch fire.
Exactly. It doesn't combust and turn to ash. It chemically decomposes, which captures the carbon inside the plant structure. And the resulting substance is called biochar.
So they're basically creating a highly porous, pure carbon sponge.
Precisely. And that biochar is an absolute agricultural game changer. When you mix it back into degraded earth, it acts like a coral reef for soil microbes.
Wow, okay, so it brings the soil back to life.
Yes, it dramatically improves water retention, filters out toxins, enriches the soil biology, and most importantly, from a climate perspective, the carbon locked inside that biochar stays in the ground for generations.
So they're generating their own off-grid power while simultaneously creating verifiable carbon credits by actively sequestering greenhouse gases. That is incredibly elegant.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that addresses the power and the soil, which brings us to the actual crops and the food loop.
Right, the actual farming part.
This is where the biological engineering gets incredibly interconnected. They take whatever discarded plant matter is left over and feed it into high-protein insect farms.
Right, specifically utilizing species like the black soldier fly, according to the sources.
Yeah, and those insects then become a zero-cost, hyper-nutritious, and entirely natural feed for their free-range chickens and their aquaculture tanks.
Oh, so they're raising fish on the protein generated from local plant waste.
Exactly. And the aquaponics setup is fascinating because the cycle doesn't stop at the fish.
No, it loops back to the plants. Because the nutrient-rich water from those fish tanks, which is essentially loaded with natural ammonia from the fish waste, is gently circulated away from the fish.
Right. And then naturally occurring bacteria break that ammonia down into nitrates, which is literally the perfect organic fertilizer.
And then that water is fed directly into their hydroponic specialist crops?
Yep. And because it's a tightly sealed, recirculating hydroponic system, the water just loops constantly between the fish, the biofilters, and the plant roots. The plants clean the water by absorbing the nutrients, and then the clean water flows right back to the fish.
And the sources say this specific mechanism utilizes up to 90% less water than traditional soil-based farming.
which makes it incredibly resilient against droughts.
Yeah, that's huge. Now, all of this complex biology is housed in what they call agri-shacks. The sources detail that these are modular buildings deployed on screw pile foundations.
Right.
For anyone unfamiliar, imagine a giant steel corkscrew driven deep into the earth rather than digging a massive trench and pouring tons of wet concrete.
And the whole intention behind that design is to leave absolutely zero permanent footprint on the landscape.
Okay, I have to push back on that physical structure, though. It sounds like a beautifully balanced giant glass terrarium. But when you rely on giant screws instead of a solid concrete slab, does a completely transient zero-footprint structure actually hold up to the harsh weather demands and heavy equipment of modern farming?
I get that concern.
It just sounds inherently fragile to me.
Well, we're heavily conditioned by modern construction to believe that permanence and strength require, permanently scarring the landscape with concrete. But the screw pile foundation is actually an established engineering standard. It's used in heavy infrastructure precisely because it provides immense stability without destroying the local soil ecology.
Oh, really?
Yeah, poured concrete completely suffocates the earth beneath it and alters the water table. This doesn't.
So the transient nature isn't a bug, it's actually a feature.
It is the absolute core of their mission to restore degraded land. They specifically target underutilized or actively damaged land. By using these screw pile foundations, they deploy this hyper-efficient ecosystem, enrich the soil with biochar, and restore local biodiversity without permanently scarring the landscape.
And I guess if they ever need to leave...
If the community ever needs to move the farm, they literally just unscrew the foundation from the earth. And the soil left behind is infinitely healthier than when the farm first arrived. So it isn't fragile, it's intentionally adaptable.
Okay, that addresses the physical infrastructure, but it introduces a massive human variable. I mean, it sounds incredible on paper, but think about the cognitive leap required here.
Oh, it's immense.
Right. You're asking an everyday person in a rural community, perhaps a lifelong conventional farmer, to suddenly manage electric vehicle repairs, pyrolysis chambers, black soldier fly breeding, aquaponics, water chemistry, and hydroponic nutrient balances.
All at the same time.
Yeah. That is a massive, incredibly intimidating skills gap. How do they realistically expect someone to operate this without a team of PhDs on site? It feels like it would...
The cognitive overload is exactly why the digital brain was developed.
Oh, right.
This is where the technology, half of their agricultural technology label, steps in. Managing a closed-loop system of insects, fish, solar power, and hydroponics sounds impossibly complex for an everyday person. So they use SAIS.
SAIs, the Sovereign Artificial Intelligence space.
Exactly. It's the core operating system driving every single microfarm.
But, whenever we hear about artificial intelligence in industrial applications, the immediate, completely valid fear is automation and job replacement. The concern is that the AI is there to make the human worker obsolete.
And that's usually the case, but Ecoladang's approach to SAIS is fundamentally different. It's an on-premise, localized AI brain that functions strictly as a mentor, not a replacement.
Okay, so it's not taking over the physical work?
No, because tracking the ammonia levels in the fish tank, the oxygen in the pyrolysis chamber, and the voltage from the solar panels all at once, that's impossible for a human brain. So AIs handles the cognitive load. It monitors thousands of environmental data points, 247, and deploys real-time standard operating procedures, or SOPs, to the human workers.
So instead of a cold corporate server trying to steal your job, it's like having a master farmer constantly whispering in your ear.
That's the perfect analogy.
But wait, give me an example of how that mentoring actually works in practice on the farm, like day to day.
Sure. So instead of a farmer having to guess when a water pump is starting to fail based on, a weird sound it's making.
Right, like rattling or something.
Exactly. The AI uses predictive analytics. It notices a microscopic change in the vibration of the pump's motor, cross-references it with the maintenance history, and just sends a simple alert to the farmer's cadlet. It gives them an SOP instructing them to replace a specific seal on Tuesday before the pump actually breaks on Thursday.
Wow. So it anticipates the breakdown.
Right. It empowers the worker by doing the invisible calculations behind the scenes, freeing the human to focus on the physical execution and the actual care of the ecosystem.
Okay, that is incredibly smart. But there's a crucial word in that acronym we need to look at: sovereign. The sources make a massive point about data sovereignty. They guarantee that all the data generated by the Malaysian farms stays securely inside Malaysia.
Yes, And data sovereignty is a radical departure from how standard global tech companies operate today. I mean, we live in an era where data mining is the ultimate currency.
Oh, absolutely. Everything is data.
Right. Giant multinational tech conglomerates routinely sweep up operational data from developing nations, process it in centralized servers overseas, and use it to train their own proprietary models. And then they sell it back to the very people who generated the data.
Right, so keeping the AI localized isn't just a technical choice, it's a shield against intellectual property theft.
Precisely.
It's a built-in vault that locks your farm's secrets inside the country. It ensures that the hyper-efficient farming data, the specific rhythms of the local climate, and the innovations of the local workers aren't just vacuumed up by an overseas tech giant.
It protects national partners from global exploitation, basically digital colonialism. It aligns perfectly with their mission of genuine empowerment, because you really cannot claim to build generational wealth for a rural community if you're simultaneously allowing their operational data to be exploited by a foreign corporation.
Wow. Okay, so we've dissected this incredibly complex biological motherboard. We have off-grid biomass energy, biochar carbon sequestration, aquaponics, EV training, medical clinics, and a localized AI mentor protecting national data.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but the final piece of the puzzle here is the actual scale of these operations. With all this advanced technology and community infrastructure, who is this actually for? The answer lies in the incredible scale, or rather, the lack of it.
Yeah. We started this discussion talking about the massive, sprawling footprint of traditional farming. But Ecoladang utilizes what they call a farm-in-a-box model. Yeah. And the physical requirements are genuinely staggering when you consider everything we just discussed.
Seriously, think about the size of your kitchen right now. Assuming you have a standard layout of maybe 200 to 300 square feet of space, you are looking at the exact footprint required for this entire operation.
It's wild to think about.
Imagine packing an entire off-grid renewable energy system, an aquaculture setup, a hydroponic farm, an insect breeding facility, and an AI server into the exact space where you currently make your coffee. Does this completely redefine what it means to be a farmer?
It absolutely does. By compressing all of that technology and biology into just 300 square feet, they are completely dismantling the traditional barriers to entry for agriculture.
You no longer need to inherit hundreds of acres of arable land.
Right. And you do not need to secure millions of dollars in corporate loans for heavy machinery and chemical fertilizers. It completely de-risks the endeavor for everyday people. Small investors, local landowners with a tiny unused lot, or even neighborhood families can suddenly participate in a booming, high-tech eco-economy.
It democratizes agriculture on a really fundamental level.
It does. When you synthesize the mechanics of the zero-waste loops, the AI mentorship, and the microscale, you realize you aren't just looking at a new way to grow vegetables. Ecoladang is engineering a harmonious balance of technology, ecology, and humanity. They're actively transforming underutilized, degraded patches of dirt into vehicles for generational wealth.
It's pretty amazing. To quickly trace the arc of our discussion today, we started with a mission to stop the brain drain devastating rural Malaysian towns, and we somehow ended up dissecting a 300-square-foot, AI-guided, zero-waste agricultural marvel.
And the reason this concept warrants such close attention, even if you live half a world away from Malaysia, is because it challenges a really deeply ingrained global assumption.
The idea that technology and nature are somehow enemies.
Exactly. We have been sold the narrative that technological progress requires the subjugation of nature. But Ecoladang provides a functional blueprint showing that technology and nature can actually be leveraged as ultimate partners.
It is such a profound shift in perspective. Instead of using technology to conquer the landscape, we can use it to collaborate with the biological systems already in place.
And that actually leaves us with a final concept to consider, building off what we've talked about. Ecoladang proved that you can successfully operate a data center, an electric vehicle training hub, and a high-yield food source in a footprint the size of a standard kitchen.
Right.
So if a high-tech farm can literally be deployed anywhere, on any degraded lot, and leave absolutely zero permanent footprint behind when it leaves,
Yeah.
how might this localized model completely erase the boundary between what we consider urban and rural living in the decades to come?
Oh, wow. That is a brilliant tension to think about. If the farm no longer requires the endless expanse, the entire map of how we build our cities and sustain our communities really has to be redrawn. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking those difficult questions, keep dissecting the systems around you, and the next time you picture the future of farming, remember it might just be sitting right inside your kitchen.